outfits, chasing likes. He walks as if he's not part of this race. Because he isn't. He's not hustling. He's not selling himself. He's not trying to get ahead. And that's exactly what makes him dangerous. He's not plugged into the same machine the rest of us are. He doesn't measure his worth in money or followers or job titles. He doesn't care if you think he's successful. He's not interested in climbing a ladder that leads nowhere. He's living by his own rhythm, his own values. And that, in a world engineered to keep you dependent, is an act of rebellion. You see, in a society where everyone is desperately chasing money, as if money is oxygen, the man who doesn't run becomes a threat. Not because he harms anyone, but because his existence asks a question that scares people to death. What if freedom isn't found in what you can buy, but in what you no longer need? What if success isn't accumulation, but liberation? What if the entire game is rigged, and he simply walked off the board? The system can't handle that question. Because that man, the one who doesn't chase money, he isn't playing. He's outgrown the game. And nothing terrifies the system more than someone who doesn't want what it's selling. Let me tell you something few dare to admit. This society isn't just built on money. It's built on your need for money, on your fear of not having it, your fear of being poor, of being left behind, of being judged. Every major industry you interact with, from education to advertising to social media to tech, isn't just selling a product. It's selling you a story, that your life is only valuable if it's profitable, that you must hustle or you're lazy, that you must want more or you're unambitious, that comfort is weakness and burnout is a badge of honor. Think about it. You're taught from a young age that success equals earning, that your time only has value if someone else is paying for it, that rest is guilt and play is childish unless it's monetized. Even schools have stopped teaching curiosity. They teach compliance. They teach you to chase credentials so you can chase a paycheck. And then they hand you over to corporations that promise fulfillment, but deliver debt, deadlines, and dependence. Here's the brutal truth. If you don't crave money, you're not a good consumer. If you're content, you're bad for business. If you're self-sufficient, you're a glitch in the matrix. And society hates glitches, so they label you lazy, irresponsible, unrealistic, broke. But those words aren't truth. They're control. They're weapons to keep you running in circles, forever chasing the next thing, forever feeling like you're not enough. But what if the man who walks away from that chase isn't lost, but found? What if the man who lives simply isn't failing, but winning? What if rejecting the money obsession isn't weakness, but wisdom? Erich Fromm once said, "If I am what I have, and if what I have is lost, then who am I?" The system doesn't want you to ask that question, but you must, because until you do, you're not living, you're just earning. And there's a world of difference between those two. Erich Fromm once said, "Real wealth is not having more, but needing less." But he went even further. He wrote, "The truly rich man is not the one who has much, but the one who is no longer controlled by the fear of not having." Let that sink in. Most people don't chase money because they love it. They chase it because they fear what happens without it. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear of irrelevance. But what if the man who feels no fear about being broke because he knows who he is with or without a bank account is actually the richest man in the room? Henry David Thoreau understood this long before the world turned into a 24/7 marketplace. He walked away from the noise, from the rat race, from the expectations. He built a cabin in the woods near Walden Pond, not to escape life, but to discover it. People called him poor, but he wasn't. He had enough food, enough shelter, enough time to think, write, walk, be. What he truly possessed was something most millionaires can't buy: freedom. Thoreau wasn't trying to beat the system, he simply stepped outside of it. And from there, he could see clearly. you can be owned, but the less you need, the less you can be bought. Fromm echoed this truth decades later. He warned that modern man had become a slave, not to chains, but to consumption. We no longer ask who we are, only what we have. We don't seek meaning, we seek upgrades. Our identity is tied to what's in our wallet, not what's in our soul. But here's the radical idea. If you no longer fear poverty, you can no longer be bribed. You can no longer be lured with shiny things or silenced by the threat of scarcity. The person who doesn't fear being poor is the one who can finally choose to be free. Let's take it deeper. What really goes on inside the mind of someone who isn't controlled by money? Who doesn't wake up every day worrying about how to climb the next financial rung or prove their worth with a paycheck? Here's what I've learned. They're not living to consume. They're living to feel, to be present, to create, to savor. Their joy doesn't come from purchases. It comes from moments, from conversations, from silence, from a walk in nature, a book read slowly, a meal cooked with care. These are the riches that can't be taxed or marketed. They don't need to wear their value. They are their value. They don't chase status symbols to prove they matter. They don't need to. They know who they are, and that's enough. They don't fear being seen as less than because they've stopped playing that game altogether. Theirs is not a life of owning, it's a life of being. And here's the thing. They've reclaimed something we all had as children but lost along the way. The ability to wonder, to play, to be curious without a price tag attached. They've taken back the right to enjoy without owning, to belong without buying, to exist without performing. They find joy not in what they possess, but in what they experience. And that makes them deeply, quietly, untouchably powerful. Because when your happiness no longer depends on the market, the algorithm, or the paycheck, you've become something that terrifies the modern world. A person who cannot be manipulated, bought, or broken. So how do you actually live this way? How do you break the grip of money, status, and endless wanting? Thoreau gave us a blueprint nearly 2 centuries ago, and it's never been more relevant. He believed that freedom wasn't found in acquiring more, but in needing less. Every item you own, every service you depend on, every luxury you cling to, comes with a string attached. And the more strings you collect, the more tangled you become. Thoreau didn't just talk about this, he lived it. He moved to Walden not to escape the world, but to study it from a distance. He built his own small cabin with his own hands. He grew his own food, lived with bare essentials, and in doing so, discovered a profound truth. When you reduce your needs, you increase your freedom. It's not poverty, it's power. It's not deprivation, it's clarity. See, when you're no longer chasing a bigger house, a flashier car, a fancier wardrobe, you free up something more valuable than money, your time.